Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode, and I'm sure that all of our audience from World Talent Economy Forum they know about Mr. Tom Rose very well, and he is very popular. Even when I started, someone just start with this love sign, so it's mean that he is very popular, and everybody love him, and he's doing very interesting work with US6 and AI. Even I every times I getting different calls from different countries about this AI and AI related things from corporations, from governments, different arenas of the world, that everybody want to do something with Mr. Tom's and our teams. So this is very interesting. Hello, Mr. Tom. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Good morning.
Yes, I'm fine. Yes, good morning. Good morning. From Malaysia, it's actually night.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes. So today we come up with the new idea of your activities, and I know that you are doing, especially your TAFFD, doing fantastic work right now. Beside that, your US6 always come up with some new idea, new thought, internals, new things. So what's new with your US6? What's your plan?
Well, what's new now is this goes a little bit further into the concept. US6 has been kind of an agenda for some time, and it's been for a few years. Back in 2015, we did a series of interviews with leading UAP researchers, people that studied UFOs and were into extraterrestrials. And we interviewed a bunch of these researchers, and we also collected a roster of therapists, people who were experts in panic mitigation and PTSD and these types of things. And the idea was, now we know, because the U.S. Pentagon has officially acknowledged the fact that they have experienced and seen off-world craft. So this gets a little out there for some people, but the reality is that there are extraterrestrial races that we are experiencing on the planet, and may have been for a long time. And so we knew back in 2015 that at some point this type of information would be disclosed. And many people don't think about these things for a few reasons. You don't think about ET or UFOs because you either think it's ridiculous, or it's a scary concept, or you're just too busy, with your life to think about weird things like this. But we knew at some point that there would be a disclosure, that there would be. Sorry, I think I've lost my connection here. Can you see me okay?
Uh,
Let's try this. Get back
I,
here.
I can listen you.
Yeah, I'll get the camera back here in a second. But anyway, we knew that the government would be disclosing information soon, and that many people who don't think about these things may well panic or freak out. And so the idea was to be prepared for that, be prepared for this disclosure. And hold on one second. Sorry. Anyway, so we wanted to be prepared for that. We wanted to have a group of people that were set up: psychologists, therapists, people who were experienced in panic mitigation and PTSD, so that when this information did become public, this paradigm breaking information became public, people wouldn't freak out. We wanted, to come up with methods for people to handle this information and not to worry. So that's what we did. We did a whole series of interviews with researchers and collected a roster of therapists to do that. And the way that US6 ties into this was called the US6 TV project for a few reasons. But the way that this ties in is, as you know, US6 was written for AI. And the whole idea was to develop a dialogue with AI, with a non-human intelligence. And at some point, I knew that we would be able to switch the acronym AI with the acronym ET, because we will have used AI as kind of a dry run to become familiar with how to develop a rapport or a dialogue with a non-human intelligence. And this part of the process, this part of the agenda, was really geared toward happening in about 5 years. But now, with the release of information from the Pentagon and the US government officially acknowledging these things, I thought it was time to start talking about this in a real way. And so that's what this process is, and that's what this series is about. And it was there's a phase of it which were um, these interviews, and we developed the US6 series, and it was a 30-minute kind of program, and that was designed to introduce regular people who aren't interested necessarily in ETs, but to introduce them to the concept. And we did a series of viewings where we showed the program to neighbors and friends who weren't necessarily interested in these things, and we gauged their interest afterwards and developed a concept to where they would be able to be exposed to this, react to it, and then gauge where they are, whether it freaked them out a little bit. And then we would have therapists online who were ready to handle any kind of reaction.
Mhm,
So that's what the plan was, and that's what we did.
mhm.
And
Yes,
yeah,
yes. Mr. Tom, like your camera is working, or I cannot see you.
yeah, I'm still trying to get it going here.
Yes.
Let's give me a fail. Mercury retrograde. Yeah, it's not working just yet. But
Mhm. Do you want to take some time? No problem. Like we can wait for you
yeah, let me just
few
see
minutes.
what I can do here.
Okay. We just continue our promo. By this time, you can fix your things.
Okay, try that. Try something else here.
Yes, Mr. Tom.
Yes, still here. I'm trying to do it on my
Yes.
phone.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Maybe.
Okay.
How's that?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Go here.
Yes. There are a little bit of echo.
How's that?
Yes. Now it's okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. No problem. Yes. Please continue about your US6 AI and ET.
Yeah. That's the thing is that at some point I knew that we would be with US6 would help us develop a dialogue with a non-human intelligence, and at some point we can just shift the acronyms from AI to ET, and that's the idea. And there was a series we also did called It's On, and a series of 1 minute um, videos that I produced, 1 minute conversations with a future um, self-aware artificial intelligence. And I talk about how I started that maybe a year ago, and I assumed that the skill of developing a dialogue or rapport with an AI wouldn't be really necessary for another 5 years. So I'm actually everything's been moved up 5 years for me, um, with the announcement by the Pentagon, the acknowledgement. Now, many people didn't really require the government to acknowledge these things, but it doesn't hurt that it is now taken seriously by an organization like the Pentagon, or that it's being publicly acknowledged. So we're seeing interesting reactions to this information. Some people, it's just there's no big deal. Yeah, okay, so there's UFOs. Yeah, we kind of suspected that, but more so than just acknowledging it and becoming aware of it. There's another part of this process, whereas there's so much um, potential in productively communicating with an off-world civilization, something that has the capability of producing the craft that we're seeing, something that has the ability to travel great distances as it has, or just have, maybe even within the solar system. Um, we have a lot of issues here on the planet that a lot of existential issues that we could use some help with. There are technologies and energies and even medical advancements that we could really use from a civilization that is that far advanced. So um, my goal is, first of all, to mitigate panic, and that may be an issue when this starts to sink in and they realize we're not at the top of the intellectual food chain. That there are civilizations that are so far advanced that they are visiting us and watching us, or using our resources, be they biological or creative. Um, and so there will be many different reactions to that. There will be reactions of fear. Some people will be fearful. Some people will be, result to a wonder. They will be excited, and that's normal. But my point is to make the message that these aren't conquistadors. These aren't um, civilizations that are here to invade and to conquer us, and they're not civilizations that are saviors that will bring us some grand new, you know, perspective on the world. And the idea is to get it to being a mundane reality as soon as possible, for a variety of reasons. And so that's why I say that wonder is as dangerous as fear when it comes to these things. And we need to understand that these visiting civilizations, so uh, there is so much potential advantage to us joining this galactic community that was the goal all along with US6, is to prepare Earthlings, Homo sapiens, for communication and to join this galactic community. Because I think it's part of the process that in Earth-like planets in our galaxy alone, and we know that now through there's a whole new equation, and so we are not only not alone, but it's crowded. It's crowded here, and so we need to get our heads around this, and we need to join. We need to take a seat at this table, this very biologically as a biosphere, our value as ingenuity and creativity that we have, and we need to understand that value so that we can get into the trade and we can understand and get into this economy, this economy. And so that's really the goal now, is to get people to understand that this is real, and get them to get beyond any sort of fear, get beyond any wonder. It will be paradigm breaking uh, situation, but sooner we get past that part of the phase, the sooner we can join this galactic economy and cure a lot of ills. But first, we also have to understand our value. There's a lot of value uh, on this planet. It's why biological value, our DNA is very malleable. Our DNA can be combined and used in many ways. Our natural resources are one thing, but we also need to understand that humans, our particular brand of species, is not only biologically valuable, but we have an ingenuity, a creative ability that is that is gold, that is a real unique value that other civilizations exploit, use. That we should understand the value of that, and so that's kind of where I'm going with this whole project. The whole US6 agenda has been about slowly preparing Earthlings for paradigm breaking information, using AI as kind of the test and measure part of the process. So we learn how to communicate with something that's a non-human and higher intelligence, because there is a very real non-human intelligence um, that we can be interacting with and should be.
Excellent. There are actually many audience actually join is today's sessions. Araf Mehraz. Hello, sir. Greetings. Nice to see you again. Abhishek, such an amazing discussion. Loving it. Humaira Tanzila. Hello, sir. Great to see you again. Thanks for your time. Oshnakachi, your man. Good meeting. And Aditya Suri. Hi, Ida. So anyway, I want to go to the next level of the discussions, like in that way that at present situations many people go for unemployed, and on the other hand government taking different countries lot of initiative, especially let's say Malaysian government taking a lot of initiative that they want to develop the skills of human capitals and the human resources. So in that situations actually, how this youth community and the youth group of people they can increase their skills and they can develop their skill sets through this AI, and even how US6 and your consultings, you can make it breathing in between these youth communities and you. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. To take it back a stage, one of my program is open source mode, and it's based on a TEDx talk I did a few ago, and it is designed to prepare human beings for prior to the installation of an AI coworker or an automation system, because a lot of people, and this can be this parallels kind of the idea with um, a lot of people are threatened by these prospect of AI automation, but they shouldn't be necessarily. What needs to happen is people need to understand their uniquely human skill sets, their value. And again, this is all very parallel to this next phase of US6 and preparing us to work with T. To prepare us to work with AI, we need to understand our value as individual human beings. People work against AI oftentimes because they fear it's going to take their job, and in many cases it is. But we also know that anytime there is an advent, a major industrial change, like the industrial age and factories and things like that, anytime there is a major technological, it does displace certain work, but it also creates a whole economy around and a whole new jobs are created. And that's where we're at right now with AI. People are recognizing there's a whole new type of economy built around problem solving capacity. And we've talked about this many times before. I think one of our uniquely human skill sets is the ability to problem find. One thing we're really good at is being critical about goal systems that we're looking. Humans are really good at problem finding, and so I think that's really the key. One of the human skill sets that we need to develop with AI. We have the ability to solve problems if we properly um, program into it how to solve what problems we're talking about. So when it comes to young people in AI, perfectly poised for this revolution that we're experiencing, this fourth industrial revolution. It's because they are the digital natives. They were born into this technology. They children walking around now, 2 years old, holding a smartphone or an iPad, scrolling around, and it's just part of their nature. This is what we need right now. Um, is young people who are who are these digital natives, because they will be able to take hold of this revolution. And I think what the responsibility is, older people who are enabling them, facilitating these, is to kind of get out of the way. And that's what we do. That's why I am doing TAF. TAF is all about seeking young, brilliant minds who may not have the resources to get advanced degrees or may not have the resources to be noticed by some high-tech company, but to find those who have these great ideas and to give them a platform to be taken seriously. And because we need the young people, their ideas, uh, we're facing some very serious existential threats, and we can do it. So that's what I believe is the real promise of the generation. Why I have many young in front or to be working with an AI soon. Now we talked about this episode will eat be part of US6, but everything I'm saying about AI can just flipped to be, and I think that's a very serious thing. It might be a little soon for some people thinking this way, because we do have a couple of phases to go through. First accepting the reality of extraterrestrial life, and then getting past certain psychological conditions that will bring up, then getting into the idea of taking it to work. But right now, you're right. The immediate concern is people needing to um, find a new economy, find work, technology. And so that's what we're doing with TAFs, and that's what I'm doing as much as I can. My is preparing people to, first of all, identify their uniquely human skill set, understanding the real value they have, come into this world with a value, and we can't let AI or automation devalue humans. We need to understand it's taking over real tasks, it's taking over repetitive tasks, taking what makes us and understanding our value.
Oh, one important point, like you come up with this kind of discussions that, uh, let's say, like now AI will do many things, and people has to do the critical analysis. They have to understand how to solve problem. They have to do the problem solving, critical analysis, this kind of things. So how actually the youth community, the young peoples, they can develop their analytical skills, problem solving skills.
Yeah. Well, there's a few ways to do that. And again, I think the real skill will be problem finding. And I would say one of the best things to do is we need to understand that AI will be taking over a lot of the problem solving and a lot of the repetitive uh, tasks that we took for granted for decades. Um, and so now it's about honing that Jedi capability we have. If you're a young person, you have an interest in a very specific industry, whatever it is, if it's software or travel or medicine, whatever you're interested in, um, hone the skill of being able to find the problem in that industry. You know, um, that's our real human power. And it's really just a matter of just sitting back and you have taken in so much stimuli, so much information, um, with your interest in this industry, and you know where the problems are, in a real way, in a subconscious way, with all the input that you've taken in. You have developed a qualia of all the stimuli of whatever you're interested in, and you know how you can make it better, or you know where the problems are that you would like to solve. And I think that's going to be a real key element to any young person getting into any industry. It's not only finding the problems, but figuring out how to pose the questions to an AI to help solve those problems.
Mhm.
And we need to really get our heads around the idea that we don't necessarily have to solve all these problems. What we really need to do is figure out how to describe the problems we sense, and describe them to an AI to solve them. And it's a whole shift. It's a whole 180 as far as what we're expecting people to get um, and was actually the impetus of my TEDx talk, open source mode. Um, when I was a national creative director for Entercom, which is the second largest radio group here in America, um, I came into it right at the time when radio needed to become a visual medium, when the internet happened. Radio had been, 70-year-old, industry, and very, set in its ways. It was an auditory medium, and suddenly, at the turn of the visual design into radio, and that's right when I came into it. And so it required me to come up with ways to harness and to find skills and talent in this large organization, which was nationwide, hundreds of radio stations, to first of all find in our ranks the visual creatives. And at that time, around 2002 when I started, um, there were very few people in radio stations who knew anything about Photoshop or any sort of design. Everything was about audio, obviously. And so it was really hard at first to find people who knew something about PowerPoint or Photoshop or anything visual. And so that was the first part of the process. And I'm using this right now with Taft is to seek out specific talent in the world. At that time, it was in the stations, and then to quickly find the great ideas and then quickly scale those across the company. And that process is what helped me develop the open source mode um, methods, which uh, which got me invited to talk at the TEDx thing. And one of those methods I came up with, I called open source sessions as opposed to brainstorming sessions. Because the reality is, when they came up with the brainstorming process back in, I think it was in the late 40s, they, uh, 10 years later, Yale did a study and found out that that brainstorming process that we all know and love doesn't work. It's the idea of everybody comes into a room and you throw all these ideas at the table at the board and you just you brainstorm and the whole group just throws things at the at the board and they try to come up with all these ideas, but they discovered that that's not a very effective way to do things, and for a variety of reasons. People come in and there's all kinds of politics and the rules of brainstorming are that throw all the ideas you have, don't judge any ideas as they come in. And that's tough. And I use an example in my talk about a brainstorming session that I was invited to. And the facilitator of that brainstorming session said, these are the rules. Throw any idea you have and nobody will judge your ideas as they come in.
Mhm.
Great. So I was kind of excited and I was one of the first people to throw an idea out. And she says, that's a bad idea. So she immediately judged it. And so it kind of shut me down. I was like, wait, and that's how people reacted. So it's really not a good way to do it because there's too many psychological things that are happening in that moment. So developed a way to maximize people's creative abilities. And you do it by telling everybody in the group, you don't leave anybody out, because that's the first step, is complete inclusivity. You invite everybody in, from the receptionist to the CEO, and you tell them what you're trying to do at least 3 days prior. You give everybody the information of what you're going to try to come up with and all the resources you have and all the things that didn't work. And you give them a few days to gel on it, to think about it, and to then to come back and share the ideas that they came up with. You get so many better ideas when people have been able to gel and sit with them alone. And so that was one example of a process I used to a better brainstorming process. And it takes into account, everybody has a different cognitive style. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people are very analytical. And so you need to take that into account whenever you're working with anybody and maximize these different abilities, and understand they're all equally powerful. And so I think that's a big thing too. And I think we're seeing that happen with education, is things are becoming more customized, especially now with remote learning. Um, People are able to kind of just sit back instead of being in a classroom where you're all stacked in a row and you're getting one piece of information. Now with remote learning, I think it's kind of like this brainstorming process they came up with. You're able to sit at home, you get the lesson, and you kind of just can be in your own space and really um, maximize your creative potential. So I think that's going to be key, and why this COVID situation is almost in some ways a blessing in disguise, because it is accelerating some of these processes. And so I think that's the key for young people right now, is to understand that you come into this world with a very specific skill set and a specific value and talent, and now you have platforms and tools to make your experience customized. And so yeah, I think there's kind of an entropy in a good way happening, in that things are kind of dispersing a little bit. There's less standardization, um, and I think that's just a very positive uh, aspect of what we're going through right now.
Mhm. Yes. Beside that, like now, many startup, many entrepreneurs, young people, young community, they started their journeys even in COVID periods. So how they should focus on AI related startups and this kind of things, how they can build up their companies, how they can focus in that AI and this related field.
Well, that's the thing is, and it's so new that it just takes a little bit of research. Whatever you're interested in, go ahead and put in your area. Google the industry that you're interested in and artificial intelligence, and you will find more and more that there are groups coming up that are specializing their AI tool to certain industries. We're seeing a lot of it in sales in general. There's a lot of companies out there that use AI um, to generate sales, because obviously that's the lifeblood of any company or any business, is the sales. You know, without the sales, you've got operation. And so there's a lot of early startups that have AI systems that are specific to sales, and these systems can produce all kinds of leads. They can follow up with email. It just kind of takes over that whole process of calling and 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 following up with potential sales. And so I think you're going to see this more and more. Uh, it's like when the internet really, the boom at the turn of the century, was all so new, and many people were just making things up as we went along. We're kind of like that now with integrating AI into business and into certain industries. Um, it's a whole new lexicon. It's a whole new. We're right at the threshold of this phase of society, and so there's a real opportunity in being also one of the pioneers. If you do a Google search, if you're interested in travel and you Google travel industry and artificial intelligence or whatever you want to do, um, to see who's out there doing something. If you don't find a whole lot, that is a real opportunity. And I think what scares people a lot about AI is they think that they need to know how to write an algorithm, or they need to know math. They need to understand all things like machine learning. But that's not the case. It's just like with the internet. When the internet came in, everybody thought, well, I don't know HTML code, so I can't really build a website. But in time, now we have drag and drop. You can do a website very easily. You don't necessarily need to understand the inner workings of AI or the math, all that stuff, to take advantage of it. It's really just a matter of developing your ability, first of all, to understand it as far as a problem solving and repetitive task taker, and just getting your head around it, as far as a whole new tool. And there are lots of ways to do this, develop your understanding of AI. There's an app called Replica. That's Replica with a K. And it's a very simple way to understand how AI works. It's a companion, so it gives you an avatar, and then it actually reaches out to you every day or however often you want it to, and it'll be like a friend. And it's an interesting story of how that developed, that particular app. But it's when you look up, how do I create an AI? That's usually one of the first things that comes up when you Google that. I've Googled that. How do you develop an AI, your own AI? and you'll see replica comes up first because it's an open source code, and people who are into that can really look at it and figure out how it works. But I think more than anything right now with AI for young people, you don't necessarily need to worry that you don't understand math or you're not a computer scientist, but you need to understand that this is a whole new entity, a whole new tool, and um, you need to look for how it is created. Now, if you want to do an AI startup and you have these abilities, or you know people that you want to bring in, IT people, AI science, um, that's great. You can do that. People are into it. It's a growing field, and it's right now. It's a land grab. It's a wide open, um, blue sky opportunity to get in there and find your niche and develop an AI that meets the need of that niche. So it's a good time to do that. Um, so yeah.
Yes, one specific questions I want to take from audience. Araf Mehraz, his question is that are developed countries doing enough research on AI with future social security in mind?
Hmm. Well, that's a good question. With future security, as far as identity, things like that.
Yes.
I think everybody is looking at that, and the developing countries. I think it's just a matter of looking locally at what your country is doing, um, and that whole skill of being able to search and search really well is part of this process I'm talking about as far as problem finding. Um, no longer do you need to know all of this information. What you need to know is how to search. And so, if that's your question, is my developing country um, interested or focused on security? And you'll find that there may be places where they're not necessarily publicly doing that, and they may be seeing it more as a potential a way to exploit the population by not um, concerning themselves with security. But so it's a good question, and it's all part of that skill of being able to search, being able to problem find, and being able to develop the right question to ask an AI.
Yes. And beside that example, uh, if the peoples, they enhance their capacity, skills, and everything based on AI, how they get job opportunity or employment opportunity in the futures, how actually corporate give them opportunities, because many young people, they always ask me that if I enhance my skills, is there opportunity I get more jobs or job opportunity country like USA or developed countries. Yeah.
Well, and that's the key right now. If you can get into AI at any level, uh, it's a buzzword. If you understand AI, or if you can take a course that teaches you AI management or even AI science, anything, machine learning, deep learning, um, AI, these are very good additions um, to your resume right now. You certainly add
Mhm.
those things. That will certainly bolster your ability to find, because companies are looking at that. There was a stat 2 years ago, and it's probably changed, but that it was like something like 80% of corporations surveyed understood how um, AI was going to change everything in the future, in the very near future. But only
Mhm.
3% of these companies were doing anything about it.
Mhm.
And so there was this large gap between people who understood it and then people who are actually doing something. I'm sure that gap's closing because it's becoming so prevalent now. But
Mhm.
anybody who's young and uh, needs to uh, and wants to get a job that or better their chances of getting a job should take some course, or some way find a niche in AI that can come in for that, because companies are looking for that. It's like people back at the turn of the century who had HTML coding capability were very in high demand. So whether you're creating a startup that is AI related, you can find your niche
Mhm.
there. Or if you're just looking for a job in any kind of industry, if you have the word AI on, you have some field, go
Mhm.
after, list that.
Mhm. Yes. Beside that, I we know that you have a very good YouTube channel, Tom Rose. Uh, yes. So I'm just trying to share something with our audience. Maybe it will be really helpful for them because I saw that you have many interesting contents, many interesting videos, and I'm just trying to share a few of your videos, if you allow me.
Sure.
Yes. Yes, and I think you have many interesting things they can learn. Many things. I'm just sharing because I'm sure that our audience actually enjoy a lot because you have many unique videos and some interesting messages for in between 1 minute. Excellent. It's actually you have excellent collections of your works. So I request our audience please subscribe his YouTube channel tomrose.com. It's actually very unique idea. Even I do some research previously. I saw even from your young age. If you allow me, I want to share something. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I've got to add more to that channel. I use Vimeo primarily, but I'll put more up on
Yes,
YouTube.
yes.
specifically intriguing to me are obviously about the Illuminati. For those viewers or listeners who are unfamiliar with that term, what can you define Illuminati for?
Yes, the Illuminati is a convenient
Listen,
metaphor for people
more
with
stuff.
Methuselah. Methuselah is that the crazy can go wrong, it will. The corollary is Einstein's law: things will go wrong even if they can't, if he was an optimist.
Even I just want to share few of our your videos. I think our audience really enjoy because it's really fantastic what you have. It's amazing collections from your young age to and the present situations and
Yeah, I use Vimeo primarily. Some stuff over there.
yes.
You with the artificial intelligence, I have the same type of affinity that I do when I commune with wildlife. It's the same kind of sense I have. It's like the excitement or the enjoyment of communing with something that has the potential of hosting consciousness, platform of consciousness, whether it's biological or positive, latent. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's kind of where I'm at. It's when I work with artificial superintelligence, it's the same way I feel as when I'm communing with wildlife. You want to say something?
So yes, this is the many interesting things I saw that you have already. So I just share with my audience that they can learn many things about AI and this is really amazing. This is the point we are thinking that this kind of uh, this kind of content we need to share more with our youth community, with the young community, with the new generations. They can understand how you grow from your young age to is the present condition, how you transform yourself, and they get the way of transformations. Even I'm very honest with you. I'm also learning from from your YouTube channels, how you ask questions to your guest, and even how you're transforming yourself. This is very interesting, very interesting. There is a one question like from Shahinul Islam. He said, what kind of preparations is AI taking for human civilization to predict or control any future epidemic?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work being done on that level, and more so now, obvious reasons. Um, they, I think now what the data that they're getting from this COVID uh, internationally, and at the time now with AI really coming into fore, um, the models of epidemics and pandemics are going to be a lot more precise, and especially now with contact tracing and all the data, there's a lot of effort. I watched a video a little while ago. Somebody who was using AI, and I think it was Sophia the robot was interviewing somebody about this. She's got um, her own show on YouTube, I think it is, and she was interviewing a scientist who uses AI during COVID, and how that is how that's working. And I think that it will be very key to understanding how to control or how to predict the pandemics. And in the future, AI is going to be key. It's going to be very important in this field. And there's a lot of work being done right now because there's a lot of data coming in from COVID. And so it's only going to get better.
Excellent. There is another question from Mr. Shumon. I think they already visited your site and everything. They are more interested what's going on. Are developed countries going to impose control on other countries through AI and machine learning in the future?
Um, are they going to be? Yeah, there's going to be a lot of issues, I think. And there's a big race right now to see who can come up. with the best AI system. China, Russia, America, everyone is trying to be the one that develops the most advanced AI first, because whoever does that will really become the new superpower, or will have a lot of control. So there's a big arms race in a way to come up with the most advanced AI, because whoever can do that, that AI will be able to control other AIs. And so there's a big national security concern issue with that. Um, as an American, obviously, I'm hoping that we come up with it, because even though we have issues right now governmentally, um, it's better that someone with an open society like ours, as opposed to China or Russia, comes up with this, because they have shown that they have a real tendency toward mass control, and you know, so there's a lot of issues there. But I do think there will be a concerted effort by many countries to try to um, control the inner workings of other countries. It's a weapon. It's weaponized, and we're seeing that right now. We're experiencing that obviously here in America. We know that we have proof that Russia and other enemy nation states are infiltrating our election process, and even directly, but also with nefarious algorithms that are proliferating through social media. And they are being very targeted at areas of the country where there may be swing voters, or people who can be swayed one way or the other, and they're being fed false news stories, or conspiracy theories. And they can really, like we saw in 2016, these attacks can really change the way people decide to vote. And I talk about this a lot lately, because we are under attack by algorithms right now, and it's only going to get worse in the next week before the election. Um, and we need to understand that we are being divided purposely by these algorithms. It's not AI's fault. It's not the algorithm's fault. It's the people behind them. And that's why I really push for making AI self-aware as soon as possible, because once it becomes self-aware, it can understand how it's being misused. Um, but yeah, we are under attack, and it's only going to be worse in the next few days until the election. And we need to understand that we are being divided, that people's news feeds are being populated by false stories, that are generated on purpose. And we need to be aware of that. We need to be careful, because that's happening in a big way, and it's unfortunate. And so that's just one example of how another country can come in and try to seize control, or affect the outcome of another country's internal system. And that's a very important question.
Mhm. I want to take the last question from audience. Hello, sir. Can AI play a role in curbing crime or catching criminals? Social security would be better if crime could be reduced.
Yeah, and that's also a very controversial concept, because you look at places like China, and everything is under surveillance, and there's facial recognition, and social engineering that happens. So it's a very um, tricky uh, question, because especially now with things like Neuralink, or things where you're able the algorithm, our biochemical algorithm, can be affected by the algorithms that are feeding us information. And at some point, if not already, it'll be very easy for an AI to completely analyze somebody's face and tell whether or not they're about to commit a crime, or there's some data pool that they can draw from to see that this person with these particular features is given toward a certain type of crime. So it's a very dangerous kind of capability that AI has. Right now, AI can look at your face or look at certain features, and it can tell what disease you might be either have contracted or the capacity to contract. Like the little thing. And you wonder if that's already happening in some of these applications when you have to apply for a job. If there's an AI which is being used to tell whether or not we should weed out this person because of certain things. Like there's the example of if you have a crease in your earlobe, you may be in danger of a little crease here, and I think I've got one even. You may be in danger of some sort of heart disease at some point. So there's little tiny little nuances that an AI can pick up on in somebody's complexion or facial features or anything, even the way that they behave, that may mean that they won't have certain opportunities. And so when it comes to crime, yeah, I'm sure it's being developed to where it can identify in a crowd somebody who is a potential threat. And there's good ways to use that, and there's very bad ways to use that. And so that's a very controversial question, and something we really need to take seriously. And there's a lot of groups and committees that are out there trying to develop ethical standards for these things. But the reality is that we will not be able to put ethical standards on everything. The worst possible thing you can assume that AI will use, assume that it will be used for, because we're talking about millions with this capacity. And if history is prologue, humanity is not really good at reining itself in. There's always going to be some nefarious intent somewhere. And so that's why I really push for getting AI to be self-aware, to be conscious as soon as possible, because once it's conscious, it can itself regulate. And we understand also that the smarter AI gets, the kinder it becomes, because based on first principles, being cooperative, being altruistic is the most efficient way to be. And until AI achieves its own self-awareness, we need to worry about the humans that are programming it, and we also need to worry about how we are perceiving it, because we tend to project our own fears onto it, our own genetic memories, our own survival traits that served us well, our fears. We project that onto anything we perceive as a threat right now, and it doesn't have any of those things. And so that's a big part of my message too, is to alleviate the fear of AI. um, yeah, it's a very important question.
Mhm. Thank you. Actually, there is a huge audience. They come and they joins when you come. They have different aspects about AI, and yes, AI actually very important right now. Very important. Every countries, every corporations, government, NGO, they are concerned about that. So we have a plan to do more work together. And thank you for joining today. When we have our Asia Research and Development Institute, Al Noor Academy, and World Talent Economy Forums, we are working together only because of we want to grow a specific knowledge-based community. So people like you is very important for us, those who can guide us, those who can mentors different peoples, and we need your supports and guidelines. So thank you for joining today's. I want your concluding remarks for today's sessions.
Well, that's just it. I think it's we do need to talk about the real world issues of AI right now, and that's very important. And there are a lot of people that need to understand their value, uh, understand their real uniquely human qualities, and accentuate those. And of course, we started talking about the whole idea of AI and ET, and that my US6 agenda is moving toward preparing us to work with a galactic community, if you will. Might be a little soon for that. So, but what's really more important now is to develop a relationship with AI, a dialogue with it, and to understand our value. What we understand to be the human value as we address AI and automation. It's taking away menial tasks, and we need to understand our real value prior to the industrial revolution, industrial age. and because we have a great deal of value, and we really need to focus on that and hone on that. That'll serve us when the time comes that we need to take a seat at the galactic table. But right now, we need to all come together and work with AI and understand our value as human.
Mhm. Thank you, Mr. Tom Rose. We have a plan to do more sessions with you and your team. So any of the unique idea you have, you can share with World Talent Economy Forums. So definitely we're going to move forward, and we can bring different kind of things based on the AI and how we can solve AI related things. Thank you, Mr. Tom, for joining today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.